The United States government is arguing in federal court right now that real ID and our identification cards for all American citizens will not be enough to prove that we are citizens. So the inverse is now happening, where guilty until proven innocent is the case for ICE, and they are demanding that passports be the only method of identification for citizenship for Americans moving forward. And for those of you who keep saying, oh, we're never going to have to show our papers, we're almost fucking there. I'm former MLB agent Joshua Kuznick, and I'm going to repeat this story because it is so important that ICE is making the argument, the government on their behalf, that passports should be the only thing that everyone should carry. They are legally arguing for American citizens to be detained, have their rights stripped, and then, unless you prove otherwise, they can take you.
All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, which is to say, in the Paleo-Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, and that is who the world ignorantly calls God. Bahashem, which means in the name. Yahweh Shai, which means He is our salvation. And that is who the world also ignorantly calls Jesus, a so-called black man, by the way, who only came for the Israelites, all right? Now, as you saw from the clip that was just played for you, there's an argument in federal court that real ID will not be sufficient enough to prove your citizenship, all right? And that they're arguing that they want you to carry your passport with you. Now, let's say you don't have a passport. How are you going to prove your citizenship then? Because this thing is heading towards digital IDs being made mandatory. And we know that that's just a avenue or a path or a Trojan horse to what they actually want to bring forth, is that RFID microchip that's going to house all of your paperwork on it. All right. Now, I Googled, is there an argument in the federal court for the digital ID not being, sufficient enough for proving your citizenship in America? And AI Overview replied and said, yes, there's a strong ongoing federal court argument highlighted by a recent DHS declaration in a civil rights case that a real ID isn't sufficient proof of U.S. citizenship because it can be issued to non-citizens like green card holders or those with DACA, D-A-C-A, and isn't always revoked if lawful status ends, leaving officers with discretion to detain citizens who present one. This is a central point in a lawsuit where a citizen was detained despite having a real ID, with the government arguing it's unreliable for confirming citizenship, contrasting with its federal mandate for acceptance at checkpoints. See? So this is the time we're coming into. All right? Now, a lot of people are comparing this administration to the Gestapo, all right, which was a secret military police in Nazi Germany, all right, that checked these citizens for their paperwork to make sure that they were actual citizens, okay? Well, that could be the case, but we know that this is leading up into them implementing and making the microchip mandatory, pursuant to Revelation 13 and 16. All right? And back to that question I asked Google, I got an article from Biometric Update, and it says DHS agent tells court real ID can't be used to confirm citizenship. And this was back on January 7th, 2026. So just last week. All right. Now I click on that link, biometric updates, or biometricupdate.com, and let's just read a little bit on the story. Biometricupdate.com. The headline reads, DHS agent tells court real ID can't be used to confirm U.S. citizenship. All right. And I'm trying to scan through the article and see if there's anything, that we can extrapolate. Yeah, let's read this. It says the position is now at the center of a civil rights lawsuit brought by Leonardo Garcia Venegas, a U.S. citizen who says he was illegally handcuffed and detained during immigration enforcement actions at private construction sites in Baldwin County, Alabama, even after agents found his Alabama real ID. So they're not with the idea of you carrying a hardback driving license or identification card anymore. They want other proof, all right? They want you to carry something like a passport. Now, we know that's almost similar to a real ID, that you have to have proof to obtain one of citizenship, but they even want to do one better. They want to get it to be a digital ID, all right? And that's where this is heading to, all right? Now, let's look up the word Gestapo. It says the Gestapo was the official secret police of Nazi Germany, established in 1933, reasonable for suppression, opposition, investigating treason, and enforcing Nazi ideology, operating above the law and playing a crucial role in the, you see it, which that was a farce. That wasn't really what they said it was up to be. But you see the word, all right? That was more of a psyop, okay? So that these small hats could take the land, all right? That's all that was. That was a land grab, okay? To put them in the position to say that they the people of the land, okay? So that HCAS, that was all a farce. That wasn't what they said it was, that wasn't what they said it was added up to be. It says, by arresting and persecuting perceived enemies of the state without judicial review, eventually falling under the overall control of the SS. All right. So we know that they moving towards the one world or the new world order, the beast system. All right. And it's going to be spearheaded by the what? The RFID microchip. Okay. So it says the name meaning goes into secret state police. All right. So this is just a little bit about it, and it's a psyop just like it is today, man. All right. It's only there to get ready and to issue and to prepare for the next phase. All right. Which is going to be that digital ID. If not just all outright the RFID microchip. All right. To make it what? Mandatory in order for you to what? Travel through what? Checkpoints. All right. Yes. This country is going to have checkpoints. All right. So don't get, don't get too, caught up in this. All right. Because this is all biblical prophecy. All right. And we're going to show it to you. Okay. So now let's go back to Micah 2:2. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. See, this is what they do in these hearings, in these courts, in these federal hearings, these government hearings. They devise iniquity upon their beds because they put these rules onto books and make them into laws to do what? To oppress a man. All right, as we're going to read. It says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds when the morning is light. When they rule it into law, they practice it because it is in the power of their hands. See? So this is what they're doing while you out having a good time at the bar with your friend, or you out at a movie or whatever, they're practicing iniquity. Because why? They're getting ready to come down with great wrath, all right? And they're going to seize everything, okay? You, as Klaus Schwab said, you will own nothing and like it, all right? It says, verse 2, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage, right? Because if you don't have this passport, you're deported. You're deported. If you don't have, eventually the digital ID with updates and eventually the RFID microchip, they're going to take and seize your land, your car, and everything, all right? And this is the direction that this is leading to, okay? Now let's get this in a different translation. Let's go to the NLT. This is the NLT of Micah 2:2. It says, when you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. And this is calling out Esau, man. When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud and violence. You cheat a man of his property, stealing his family inheritance. See? And that's exactly what this damn devil's been doing for generations, man. All right? With a thing called eminent domain, where they can seize your property, your land, take it, and then give you something that's supposed to be a compensation to give you for taking your land and seizing your land under eminent domain. The government can come and seize your land, your property, and whatever, and what have you. Well, guess what? If you don't have the proper paperwork, which is going to be more than likely a digital ID, which is going to transition into the RFID microchip, they're going to seize and take your land anyways, okay? That's why Yahweh Shai says in Matthew 19:29, he says, everyone that has forsaken their houses, their brethren, their sisters, their mother, their father, their land, for my name's sake, roughly paraphrasing, shall receive 100-fold and then some, all right? So we're going to lose all of this, all right? It's already written, okay? Because in order for you to keep it, you're going to have to eventually take that RFID microchip, all right? And this is the layout, or this is the format that they're laying out to walk us right into the RFID microchip, all right? Where a real ID isn't sufficient enough because it cannot be proven that you are a citizen once it has been revoked, okay? So now they can have what they call real-time update with a digital ID, which we know can be put onto a RFID microchip, which is why they're setting the stage for this 6G, all right? Because this 6G is going to be a wearable, and eventually it's going to be a telecommunication where you could put it within inside your body, as 6G can pair up with a microchip, all right? I did the research, okay? And the 6G network, it can be in conjunction with a RFID microchip, all right, where they can get live, up-to-date feeds, okay? So if your real ID has been provoked, or if you no longer a citizen, they can see that your status has changed, okay? And you can't, see right now, under this current regime, this current administration, and even in general, you can say, if you get stopped and pulled over by police, I haven't updated my work, my driving license, or what have you. And they may cut you a break because they know the system is slow at some times. Or they know the system isn't always up to date or accurate. But with this technology that they're coming forth right now, it won't be no lapse or no slip up in the system, okay? It's going to show real up-to-date, feeds, okay? So if your ID has been provoked, or if you have been, if it has been reinstated, it's going to show that, all right? So this is where we heading to, man. Now, if you're going to compare to the Gestapo, by all means necessary. All right. But this is that great wrath that's getting ready to come down, man. All right. And they're going to be doing more and more checkpoints. And if you don't have your status up to date because you haven't gotten a digital ID, well, guess what? You're going to be carted off into one of these detention centers where you will be given a chance to get a real ID, a digital ID, and eventually the RFID microchip. All right. So that's the direction we're heading into. So Micah 2:2, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. See? So eventually you're going to have to lose it all anyways, man. All right? This is where it's coming at. This is what it's coming down to. We're going to have to lose it all for Yahweh Shai's sake. So getting in the right mindset and in the spirit is what's helping us prepare now for this very specific moment. While you're going to have others that don't want to lose their houses or their lands or what have you. They're going to take the RFID microchip, if for no other reason, just out of the essentials of getting something to eat, somewhere to sleep, and whatever else. Okay? Now let's go here to Revelation 13, because this is the actual prophecy, verse 16. It says, and he, Esau, Edom, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. See? So guess what? If you don't have this mark, the charagma, you won't be able to get your land purchased and updated and paid for, your car registration, your insurance, and what have you. All right? If you don't receive the mark, you're going to lose it all. All right? So this is the path and the direction we're leading to. It says, and that no man might buy or sell save he or except he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. See? So these real IDs, they was just, a introduction to get you prepared for what they're really going to start to ask and require of, which was what? A digital ID, which even that ain't going to be sufficient enough to where they're going to ask you once this 6G network is up and moving to get a microchip embedded in between your finger and thumb in your right hand or in your left hand. You see? Or you can get the one that they're going to have inside your forehead, the brain computer interface, which is a microchip. Okay? So this is where we're at with it. Okay? This is exactly where we're at. All right? And they're going to have checkpoints, as you can see from the article. Well, I didn't show you the article, but I cited the article. And I may go back and show it to you. But let's go to this right here. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 15 and verse 17. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, right? Because if you can't get past the checkpoints because your ID or your lack thereof, a digital ID, won't allow you to come in, guess what? They're going to take you and be an idol, feed you things offered to idol. Okay, they're going to give you the chance to get your paperwork up to date digitally and even get it on a microchip and put it inside you, because why? You can't move, you can't do nothing. You're idle without it. So you being idle, they're going to feed you things offered to idols, which is the RFID microchip. And unless you have it, you won't be able to buy and sell on the grid. You won't be able to buy or sell on this man's grid, Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Okay? So this is where we going at with it. All right? Now let me look and see if I can find that article and bring it up so you can see it. So here's the question, and here's the answer. Yes, arguments exist in federal courts challenging the Real ID Act, focusing on states' 10th Amendment rights, commanding states in potential infringement on privacy travel, but court cases also revolve around how Real ID's proof of citizenship for voting interacts with existing IDs, with critics argue some real IDs don't inherently prove citizenship. Well, this is totally different from the one I read earlier, but the article that I was reading from was off of this biometric update right here. And this is the part that I was reading right there. The position is now at the center of civil rights lawsuit, okay? So this is exactly where we're at with it, all right? And this looks like a better answer this time around when I clicked it. Yes, there is a developing federal court argument, notably from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS itself, that a real ID isn't sufficient to conclusively prove U.S. citizenship for all federal purposes because states can issue them to non-citizens and agents find them unreliable. See? This is what it all comes down to. They practice, what does it say? Micah 2 and 2. They practice iniquity in their beds, okay? And when the morning rises, they practice it. Roughly paraphrasing, all right? But if you want to get the actual precept, it's woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. So real ID isn't sufficient to conclusively prove U.S. citizenship for all federal purposes because states can issue them to non-citizens and agents, whether that's ICE, FBI, DHS, find them unreliable, leading to situations where citizens must carry other proof like passports. Despite no legal mandate for citizens to carry ID, DHS agents claim real IDs can be fake or aren't definitive proof of citizenship, just lawful presence for some. So this is where those digital IDs come into place, all right? Where they can have the real-time updates applied to them. Why? Because they're going to be digital, all right? So this is exactly where we at, all right? They're getting ready to come forth and, hey, the RFID microchip, the mark of the beast is right around the corner, all right? Stay locked in. So let's go ahead and close out with 1 Peter 5 and 8. And it reads, be sober, be vigilant. See, take these warnings, and actually listen and take heed to them because it's going to come a time where you're not going to be able to get them anymore. It says, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. Right. We read it, Micah 2 and 2. All right. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. That's what they do in these hearings, these federal courts. All right. They're what? They're devising iniquity. See, once this thing is made mandatory, a lot of Jacobs going to lose their land, their property, and in essence, they're going to lose their family because why? Their wives are going to up and leave them, okay? But you have to be able to stand 10 toes down for Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai's sake, all right? So it says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour, right? If you invested and tied into this society, this kingdom, guess what? You're going to do everything it asked of you to do leading up until you taking that RFID microchip. And then from that point forward, you through, man. It's only a matter of time, okay? For you get destroyed right along with the rest of this wicked kingdom, all right? So that's going to wrap it up on that. With that being said, pray someone was edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.